There is a newspaper in Yiddish called the Algemeiner, as everyone knows. I just want to tell the background a little bit behind the Algemeiner. A lot of the things I didn't see firsthand. I didn't even hear it firsthand. But at the time when this happened, it was so mefursam, so famous in 770, and everyone knew it. So there must be truth to it. Many of the details I don't know. People who were involved probably do know. But I just want to say over what 770 knew, what everyone was talking about, and how it was. There used to be two separate Jewish newspapers in Yiddish, one called Der Tag, one called Morgenjournal. But after years, and these are many, many years ago, after years they joined and it became one daily newspaper called Der Tag Morgenjournal. And Rebbe Gershon Jacobson, who was a beautiful writer, was one of the writers in that newspaper. At one point, the newspaper closed down. They said it was for financial reasons, but I don't know exactly, it closed down. Soon as it closed down, right away, the Satmar Chassidim took the opportunity, took advantage, and opened up a daily newspaper in Yiddish. Till then, they only had a weekly newspaper once a week, and they opened up a daily newspaper because this newspaper closed. But after a month, they had to close it, and the way the rumor was, because they used to write obviously according to their own hashkafis, and for Hameinam, for the masses, it didn't work, and therefore they couldn't support it, or whatever it is, but it closed down. After it closed down, and again I'm repeating that this I don't know firsthand, but it was so first that this is what happened, so I'm repeating it. After this closed down, the Rebbe gave over to Rebbe Gershon Ber, and he said, why don't you do it? You open a newspaper. And he suggested that he opens a newspaper. This is not a newspaper that is mitam Lubavitch. In other words, it's not an official Lubavitch newspaper that only says the Hashkofa of Lubavitch. It's a Yiddish newspaper, a Fruman newspaper, written in Yiddish, edited by a Lubavitcher person, a Lubavitcher Yungeman. So obviously a lot of things there will be Lubavitch, but it's not limited to Lubavitch because it's not an official at all, an official Lubavitcher thing that comes from Lubavitch, which has to fit everywhere, it has to fit to Lubavitch. And the Rebbe suggested that he should open one. And the Rebbe even was surprised why no one thought of it, and he has to say it. That's the way the rumor was. Again, might be people who were inside know much better and know different. This is the way it was. Then it came to a question, what name to give it. So they gave into the Rebbe all kinds of suggestions of a name. And the Rebbe wrote, I think, or maybe said, Baal Peh, that he's surprised why no one thought of this name, Der Algemeiner Journal. In order to show that this is not something specific from a specific group. Algemeiner means it's the general, it's a general. Now, this is not a daily newspaper, but it took the place of the daily newspaper then of the Tag Morgenjournal because it's in the same format. So the Rebbe said, why not call it, surprised why they didn't call it, no one thought of calling it their Algemeiner Journal. And that's how it got the name. I heard that some of the hesitations on this name, the Algemeiner Journal, is because when you refer to it, it's hard to refer to it. When you would write, it says in der Algemeiner Journal. It doesn't fit in Yiddish. Yiddish, you have to say, if the word Algemeiner Journal means a general journal, you would say, sie steht in dem Algemeiner Journal. But the name of it is der Algemeiner Journal, so it's a little bit hard when you have to refer to it, how to use the name. So that's what I heard then, that there was some hesitation, but that's what the Rebbe said, and that's how it stayed. And from then on, started this Algemeiner Journal, who was run, and the whole thing was by Rebbe Gershon Ber Jacobson, and he wrote a lot of things about the Rebbe, and all kinds of great things there, and a lot of the Rebbe's messages were there. But this was not an official undercoming of the auspices of Lubavitch, but it definitely was good for Lubavitcher Hashkofa that it would tell what the Rebbe, and every time the Rebbe would say something new, they would put it there. They would put sichas of the Rebbe there. And even some people who are not Lubavitch would get the Rebbe sichas through the Algemeiner Journal because they would print every week a sicha of the Rebbe from the Likutei Sichas. As a matter of fact, I would like to say this over, that I once, while I was talking to Rabbi Yankiv Kamenetsky, who used to come to Miami every year, and he used to visit the yeshiva, I used to visit him, we became friendly. So he told me that he reads every week the sicha of the Rebbe in the Algemeiner Journal. And he says sometimes he even has ha'oras on it. And he tells me, for instance, in the one for Parsha Mishpotim, I had a ha'ora on the Sikha there. And he's trying to remind himself what the Sikha was about. And he turns around to me, so what was the Sikha in the Algemeiner Journal on Parsha Mishpotim? So I told him, I don't know. He says, Ir weiß nicht? He looks at me surprised, you're Lubavitcher, you don't know? So I told him, I know the Sikhas that I do know is this from the Likutei Sichas. I don't know it from the newspaper. But I started thinking, he reminded himself what the Sikha was. It was Benegeya Dalad Vehei By Sherva said that if someone steals an ox or a sheep and he shechts it or he sells it, he has to pay not double but 4 or 5 times. So the Rebbe has a whole beer wine, and he had a shaila on the sicha, and I answered him the shaila. But he told me, you see, I learned the sichas, so it did a lot for Lubavitch. It isn't a official coming out of Lubavitch, but it has. But it all started because the Rebbe encouraged it. Here you have an opportunity that people will buy it because the other one stopped, so more chance people will buy it, and they will get the proper hashkafa. And this is the way it was mafursim. The beginning of the Algemeiner came, but as I said again, this is not first hand, and that's it.